Hi, 8th graders. Most of you should be finished with your 2-point perspective drawing, where you have the 9 or more boxes and then you morphed or transformed 5 of them into more complex shapes or letters. And don't forget to refer to my worksheet for help. And you're at the point now where some of you are painting your background, where you have this small brush and you're painting around the shapes first. And then you can move to a bigger brush and then paint the rest of the background. And after you're done with that, then you will be painting your shapes. So if some of you are ready to move on to the next step, you'll need to think about where a light source is coming from. If you remember from previous projects when we worked with perspective, we never colored the shapes all the same color on every side. We thought about where the light source was coming from, and then we adjusted the color by making tints and shades or lighter colors and darker colors to show depth and value. You can see in this example that this student chose just to paint all of her shapes red, but then she put the light source down on the bottom left because you can see that the bottom of the shapes are the lightest, and then the left side is the next lightest, and the right side is, for some cases, the darkest, like with this. So that's what you'll be doing, is working with your paint to create tints and shades. One side of your shape can be the original color, and then you'll need to add tints where the light source is shining to show the highlights by mixing white with your color. And then for the shaded parts that are facing away from the light, you'll need to add just a little bit of black to make your shade. One thing that you need to do before you start painting your shapes is to determine where your light source is coming from. I suggest choosing one of the 4 corners. It can be any of the corners that you want, really any corner. In this case, I placed it in the bottom right corner, and you can do that just by putting a sticky note down in the corner or lightly drawing with pencil a little sun rays or something so that you remember where your light source is coming from. And I want you to label each shape before you paint it, just so that you know what you need to paint and you've thought through it. Some shapes are a little bit more challenging because you have a lot of different sides and you might have curves on your shape as well. So for this example, I decided that the front of the M, since it's tilting to the right, it is going to be the lightest because that's where the light's coming from. And then I determined, well, this left side would be probably medium or the pure color. And I decided also that this angle would also be medium. And then the top of the shape, because it's the furthest away from the light, then would be the darkest color. And I also, this little area, I decided would be a tint. I would maybe make that a little bit darker just so that it looks different, but you'll have to make that decision. You can also mix colors to be in between. So you can see in some examples, in this one up here, I put M/S, so that's between medium and a shade, just so that I would have enough color differences. You can also see here that I decided that I wanted my color to fade from a shade because this angled part would be blocking this part from getting the light. But then as it comes around the curve, it would actually be a little bit lighter because the light's able to shine on that part. Take your time with this step and just think logically about where your colors should be. But you can see here, I just labeled the bottom tints. The front I decided would be medium because the left side is getting the least amount of light. And it might be different from shape to shape, and you'll just have to adjust that. But as long as you're thinking logically about it, you should be okay. Here's your reference for the colors. And like I said, you don't just have to mix a dark red, a pure red, and a pink. When you add white to red, it makes pink. But you can have some in between colors as well. Think about your color scheme. If you want just one color, like this example I showed you, or if you want two colors, you could do that. Or if you want more colors, you could do that as well. Like this one has a lot of different colors. You'll want to make sure when you're painting your colors that you make the colors or the tints and shades different enough so that you can clearly see the different edges of your shape. You won't have pencil lines or dark lines showing the edges. So for this example, you can very clearly see, even though it's a little streaky, you can clearly see the dark edge and then coming to the medium edge and then the light edge. The stairs also works out really well. It's kind of subtle, but you can definitely see the difference. These oranges are a little bit too similar. It's a little bit hard to see this difference. If you squint your eyes, it almost looks the same. Once you get your shapes labeled, then you'll be able to start using the acrylic paint in your palette to mix shades and tints. Keep in mind, you'll start with your pure color, that should be the medium color. Mix white with it to make the tint, and mix just a little bit of black to make the shade. You want to stay away from tones. That's where if you add white and black, or you mix gray in with the color, it dulls it down a little bit too much, and we want to stick with tints and shades. So make sure you keep your brushes separate. Here's a guide with the labels on it that show how the artist determined what should be the lightest area, medium, and then darkest. And next, I'm going to show you an example that I have and how I mix the colors.